What's going on, guys? Welcome to The Point After with Mitch Kaiser. I'm your host, Mitch Kaiser. Happy Friday. I am back here in Mike Renner's studio from CBS Sports. House sitting again for Mike this weekend, so figured it was the right time to do a college football episode with all the Notre Dame gear back here. But doing my college football power rankings today for you guys. Top 25. I know the coaches poll just came out about a week ago, and the AP poll is coming out probably sometime next week. But want to give you my personal rankings of the top 25 teams in college football who I think are the best rosters from top to bottom, both sides of the ball, and just kind of give you my thoughts on each team, where I think they could end up, where I think they could finish in their division, make the playoffs, you name it. These are who I think are the top 25 teams in college football. Coming off of our NFL over-under picks this week. Want to get back into college football with that. We're closer to college football than regular season NFL, so wanted to ramp up on that now and really get my power rankings out there for you guys on college, because we know I love college football, so wanted to can't lose out on that. So won't waste any more time. We'll just get right into it here. Gonna do top 25, go from 25 down to 1. So starting at 25, the Missouri Tigers are my 25th ranked team, and this is a respect nod to Eli Drinkwitz and what he's really accomplished there at Mizzou. They've won 29 games in the last 3 seasons, which I don't think that gets talked about enough. Like 29 games in 3 years is very impressive. Like that's winning almost 10 games per. So like not many schools can do that and really accomplish that unless you're like the elite of the elite, like the OSUs, the Bamas of the world, the Georgias of the world. So I just want to give Drinkowitz some respect there, because I do think he gets kind of forgotten about and slept on in the run of SEC head coaches, and he's closer to the top than people think. So, and the success he's had in Missouri, what he brought them back from, I don't think people talk about it enough, if I'm being honest. So they also possess who I think is the best running back in all of college football, and that's Ahmad Hardy, who he's coming off a terrific season where he was almost in the Heisman race. 1,650 yards rushing, 16 touchdown runs on the ground, averaged 6.4 yards per carry. That is getting it done. That is elite. He's not really the pass catcher yet out of the backfield that you'd like. Only 22 receiving yards last year, but when you're running for 1,600 yards, we'll let it slide a little bit in the receiving game. But they also have former Ole Miss starting quarterback who lost his job to Trinidad Chambliss, Austin Simons. Now, I wasn't super impressed with Simons in the playtime that I did see of him. I'm not like predicting he's going to be a star or whatever, but I do think this is a very talented kid who now has a chip on his shoulder and a good southpaw lefty arm, has a good arm, athlete. I would just keep an eye on Missouri because I do think Simons has like a little bit of a chip now, and he wants to, prove something in the SEC after losing his job at Ole Miss. So I'm predicting about an 8-4 season on Missouri. Another good year for Drinkowitz, where he's really kind of just officially made that program a top 25 team for years to come. So speaking of a team who's now, entered the top 25 for years to come, that is the Vanderbilt Commodores. Brent Lee checking in at 24 here on my power rankings. Vanderbilt. Things are just getting started for Brent Lee here at Vandy in Nashville after coming off the team's best season ever in the history of their school, I believe, at Vanderbilt. A 10-win season. It was the first 10-win season Vandy's ever had. Incredible run for him with Diego Pavia, and it is just the beginning. He brought in the best recruiting class the school has ever seen. A top 30 class in their in the entire country, which is insane for Vanderbilt, including the top overall quarterback, who is the prized possession of the offseason, Jared Curtis. People are raving about this kid. The sky is the limit for this kid. There's a lot of excitement and buzz surrounding the program with Jared Curtis's arrival. I think they should start the kid. I think he is good enough and ready, and I think you should start the next iteration of Commodore football and get this kid some reps, get this kid some playtime, because the potential he has, the ceiling he has, is through the roof. It's NFL future right there for Jared Curtis. So I don't think we should expect 10 wins again out of them. That was the best season right away in Vanderbilt history. I think it's asking a lot to repeat 10 wins, but like 8 wins, 9 wins. I mean, I do think Brent Lee has established this team as a top 25 program. And with Jared Curtis for your hopefully starting quarterback for the next 3 seasons, you're looking pretty good, and you're looking to take that next step as a program in the SEC and really make a playoff berth. If Vanderbilt, if Lee and Curtis can bring Vandy to a college football playoff in the next 3 seasons, that would be incredible for a school like Vanderbilt. So all the credit in the world to Brent Lee and what he's built there. And like I said, they're just getting started. All right, 23, Arizona Wildcats. So the 2 SEC teams, and now we got a Big 12 team, our first Big 12 team, Arizona Wildcats, who also won 10 games last season and almost ended up winning the Big 12, kind of coming from behind. They lost 3 early games and then really lit it up in the second half of the season. Noah Fafita especially playing lights out football in the back half of the season last year, tore up my Cincinnati Bearcats. I remember that game. Noah Fafita is a top 10 quarterback in college football, and he played like one last season, and he's going to play like one this season again. I know Tet McMillan has been gone now for 2 years, but that has actually enhanced Fafita and the rest of the receiving core to step up in Tet's place. I feel that Fafita was so hyper-focused on Tet, and it really like kind of made him like target his whole receiver the whole time, and like his eyes were never away from Tet. It was the only thing. It was the only receiver he was throwing to. So the defense expected it every time, and it caused the Wildcats to have a horrible season in 2024. That was not the case in 2025. Fafita lit it up through the air and a little bit with his legs too, a little more than he had in past. I think Noah's looking to go out with a bang. He's been one of my favorite QBs now for quite some time in college football. And I do think we're going to see another 9-3 season out of Arizona where they could potentially compete to win the Big 12. So 22, Penn State Nittany Lions. So I didn't think I would have Penn State in this after kind of the just like eradication of their program last year and like kind of like the whole change that has happened now in the new college football landscape with them firing James Franklin, missing out on the playoffs last year, having a bad season, and now bringing in Matt Campbell, one of the highest floor coaches in college football, I would say. And the good news for Penn State is they have one of the easiest Power 4 schedules you will see. It's going to be hard for them to not win 9 games. I was talking about this with a couple other people, and I was like going down their schedule. I was like, they might finish 10-2, and like with these names on their schedule. So like, I believe Michigan is the only one they face out of like the top 3 in the Big Ten. I believe Penn State misses Ohio State, Indiana, and Oregon. So like missing the top 3, you might find a way to sneak in the playoffs if this team is good. And like I said, he's bringing over essentially the entire Iowa State Cyclones roster, who finished like 8-4 a season ago, like back end of the top 25, had an okay year, but not like crazy good. He's bringing in stars like Rocco Beck, Chase Sowell, and Marcus Neal, star safety in the secondary. This is essentially the 2025 Iowa State Cyclones, who are pretty solid, all things considered. Like nothing special, nothing, they were ranked for a while. They were undefeated for a while, and then they lost a couple late games in the season and finished with a worse record. But that's kind of what I'm expecting from Penn State. I'm picking them to go 9-3. I think it's going to be similar to how Iowa State's had their seasons in the Big 12. And again, I don't think Penn State could compete with Ohio State or Indiana. They don't have to this year, but I don't think they'll have enough to finish 10-2 is what I'm getting at. But they will be in the picture simply because of how easy their schedule is. They will probably be in the graphic late, and it wouldn't surprise me if they snuck in, all things considered. But they might have to go 11-1 if they want to make the playoffs, given their schedule. Because like Ohio State plays Oregon, they play Michigan, they play Indiana, and they play Texas. So like that's asking significantly more out of the Buckeyes than you're asking from the Nittany Lions to get in the playoffs. So we'll see how the committee handles that. 21. Tennessee Volunteers. So top to bottom, Tennessee is a stacked roster. Pretty stacked roster for Josh Heupel, and they should be very formidable in the SEC, especially on defense. I think this is going to be the team it was 2 years ago where they made the playoffs and lost to Ohio State with a really good defense, and the offense was kind of a struggle. I think this will be Heupel's best defense he's had in at Tennessee since he got there. The quarterback is honestly the only remaining question, as the starter has still not been named. It's either redshirt freshman George McIntyre or true freshman Fajon Brandon. I've kind of been banging the table for Fajon because I think the recruiting pedigree he has, the highlights I've watched from high school are insane, and I think he's going to be like the real deal at Tennessee. But I've also heard really positive things out of George McIntyre, and the guy is 6'6" and has a cannon of an arm. So I don't know if you can go wrong. I think Heupel will make the right decision, whoever he goes with and whoever he trusts more. But we also have to see it in the games. There's a big difference from like playing well in practice versus playing well in the games. It's a whole different ballgame. And sometimes the pressure gets to the kids. Sometimes the pressure is too much for someone. So one of them has to hit. If just one of the QBs hits, the Vols could have a really good season and definitely make it back to the college football playoff. That is certainly on the table for them to go 10-2 and make it back into the college football playoff with a legitimately elite defense. And if either of the QBs really hit their stride, I think you could see the Vols back in the playoffs like they were in 2024 with Nico Iamaleava. All right, moving on. 20. Oklahoma State Cowboys. Or should I say the North Texas Mean Green from last year who went 12-2. So this is by far the most improved team in the country on paper. Like, I don't care what anyone says. This is an entirely new roster, entirely new coaching staff with an entirely new quarterback leading at the helm. They basically brought over the North Texas Mean Green, like I said, with head coach Eric Morris, quarterback Drew Mestemaker, who led the nation in passing yards last season, 69 completion percentage, like 4,600 yards. What he had, like 34 touchdowns to 9 interceptions, only an elite touchdown interception ratio. The guy has a cannon of an arm. He looks like the prototypical NFL QB that you watch on Sundays. So keep an eye on Mestemaker because he's going to rise up draft boards very quickly if he continues to play like he did at North Texas. This guy can just spin it, man. Like, I can't wait to see the numbers he puts up against Big 12 defenses because I do think it could be similar to what he was putting up at North Texas. And if that's the case, he might go number 1 overall in next year's draft. I'm not kidding. And it helps, especially that he has Wyatt Young and Caleb Hawkins coming over from North Texas as well. Star wide receiver Wyatt Young, who reminds me of Cooper Kupp, and then Caleb Hawkins arguably was the best true freshman running back in the country last year. So they are going to do special things for this Oklahoma State Cowboy offense. It remains to be seen how good the defense will be in the Big 12 with other elite offenses. Like, I think a lot of Oklahoma State games are going to be like 34-36 or like 42-45 or something like that. So Drew's going to have to put up numbers. Messmaker's going to have to go out there and spin it and put up some yards to keep up in the Big 12. I would circle the Texas Tech game for Oklahoma State on your calendar right now because I think that's going to be a special game late in the season. And definitely keep an eye on Oregon or Oklahoma State in week 2. I'm not predicting Oklahoma State to upset the Ducks. I'm just saying watch that game because if it's a closer game or if Mestemaker looks good against the Oregon Duck defense, watch out for the rest of the season. I'm just saying if the Cowboys come out and give the Ducks a competitive game in week 2, unlike last year where they lost 69-3 with Mike Gundy, keep an eye on Oklahoma State for the rest of the year. Again, I don't think Oklahoma State will beat Oregon in week 2, but if they make it like a close game, like a one-score game, there's going to be some interesting conversations about the Cowboys and Mestemaker especially. So, all right, moving on. Number 19, SMU Mustangs. So they have really stuck around in the ACC. They were not just a flash in the pan, not just a one-year wonder. They are here to stay. Rhett Lashley is genuinely one of the best head coaches we've seen in college and one of the best head coaches we have right now in college football. So what he has turned SMU into is quite impressive coming out of the American Conference a couple years ago and now just being almost like a powerhouse in the ACC. Like, they went 8-4 last year after making the playoffs season ago, and they brought back star quarterback Kevin Jennings, who has been a stud for 2 seasons now, 3,500 passing yards both years, and he's really good with his legs as well. He's injured right now, but it's not going to affect him into the season. It was a jammed finger. He should be all right. And a very easy schedule by ACC standards, although SMU does play Notre Dame late in the season, late in November. So I think that's at South Bend, too. I think that's up in South Bend. So that's going to be a tough one for the Mustangs to win. I would not pick them to take down the Irish. I would expect Notre Dame to win that. But if SMU can only lose one ACC game, I know they play Louisville pretty early on, and they have an easier ACC schedule as it goes. They could compete for the ACC championship game. They could certainly make it back into the picture. I know they lost that game to Clemson a couple years ago and still got in. They're definitely a playoff contender in the ACC and going to be one of the top 3 teams in the ACC. I'll give them third. All right, 18. Moving on, Houston Cougars. So we're not talking Houston basketball, but this might be the best Houston football team we've had in quite some time. I can't remember a season where Houston's been ranked in football versus basketball, where they're always top 10, top 5, whatever. This is a dark horse Big 12 contender. Absolutely a dark horse Big 12 contender. I think they're going to go 9-3, possibly better. Connor Wegman is back for his final year of college football. Had a pretty good season, really came on strong in the back half of the season last year with his legs, really used his legs, and that opened up a lot in the offense, especially with the offensive line being a weak link. That's going to be a strength this time around. The offensive line is much improved. They've turned that into a strength. That's going to help the run game, the running backs. It's also going to help Connor Wegman on the ground to use his legs, who had over 600 rushing yards at the end of the season last year. So if he can continue to take strides with his arm, I don't think Wegman's ever going to be the number 1 draft quarterback that I thought he was back at A&M a few years ago. But that doesn't mean he can't help the Cougars win a Big 12 title. And especially when your top receiver, Amari Thomas, comes back, is also returning, who is a big difference maker on the outside, that's going to help your passing numbers as well. I think Wegman's going to have a really good season. I think the Cougars are going to have a really good season and repeat as 9 wins again. And they might have ended up winning 10. Yeah, I think they beat LSU in the bowl game last year and end up going 10-3. So that would be the 2 of the best football seasons that Houston's ever seen. So good stuff for their program on the rise. They're certainly a Big 12 contender to give Texas Tech some run and BYU some run at the top of those standings. So, all right, back to ACC. So I talked about the 3rd best team in the ACC. Now I'm going to give you guys my 2nd best team in the ACC. That is the Louisville Cardinals. So I was kind of shocked when I saw that Louisville was not ranked in the coaches poll. And I know Max and Dalton, friends of the pod, preferred walk-on, were also in disbelief that Louisville was not ranked in the coaches poll. They definitely need to be ranked in the AP poll next week. I think that's crazy if they're not. They are firmly one of the top 25 teams in the country, and they definitely should be. They should be ranked given how good this roster is. Isaac Brown and Keyshawn Brown, they are maybe the 2 most underrated running backs in college. Both average over 7 yards a carry. Isaac Brown was 8.5 yards a carry. I feel like every game he only gets 8 or 9 carries, but he runs for 90 yards. It's insane. Go look at his yards per attempt. It is the highest in college football almost. It's insanely insane level of production out of Isaac Brown. And I think they're only going to force feed him more this year. He didn't get enough carries, in my opinion. You should be handing that guy the rock so much more than you were in 2025, in my opinion. So I think that's going to help the offense even more, keeping Isaac Brown on the field. And then head coach, QB whisperer, Jeff Brom, who I'm a big fan of, if he can develop Lincoln Kienholz, who I was really high on, the transfer out of Ohio State, who backed up Julian Sayin, who Buckeye fans rave about, Ryan Day raves about talent-wise and his potential and the tools that Kienholz had. If Jeff Brom can help Kienholz develop, well, this team could seriously finish 11-1 with the schedule they have and clinch the ACC championship, and then compete with Miami, who they beat last year after Beck threw 4 interceptions. Remember that game where Miller Moss walked into the Gardens and beat Miami Hurricanes? That was crazy. Louisville. So that's realistically on the table again for the Cardinals. I'm very high on Keynotes. I think he has like NFL caliber tools. Like, I'm not projecting him to like have like a Heisman season, but I think he's going to be very good for this offense, given what Jeff Brom has gotten out of his previous few quarterbacks. I think this kid's more talented than Miller Moss and Jack Plummer by far. So, their first game's against Ole Miss. That's going to be a really fun one. And I don't have a pick on that yet. I don't really have we're going to get to Ole Miss later in these rankings here. They're obviously higher than Louisville on my power rankings, but that game might be a coin flip for me. And like, even if Louisville loses that game, they could realistically run the table after that and go 11-1. And if Ole Miss loses that, then it's like, what happens to them in the SEC? So that's kind of like, that's almost like a must-win game for Ole Miss and not for Louisville. But if Louisville does happen to win it, then we're talking about the Cardinals in a whole different light. And who knows what happens after that in the ACC. So I'm excited, man. That's going to be a good game. I think that's one of the like Sunday, Monday games over Labor Day too, if I'm not mistaken. So, all right, moving on. Michigan. Number 16 is the Michigan Wolverines. So I got them here. This is a tough team to rank because I love the Kyle Whittingham hire, and I think he's a fantastic coach. I think he will bring stability with zero drama to Michigan, if nothing else. Like, they have not had no drama in quite a while there, even though they just won a national championship in 2023. I still just think the hiring of Kyle Whittingham signaled that program wants less drama and just stability, and a good leader in Kyle Whittingham, who's one of the best coaches in college football, who is bringing over several elite Utah transfers, including defensive end John Henry Daly, who's a stud. I am curious to see how Whittingham's offense fits Bryce Underwood, and if Bryce can still live up to his recruiting hype. I mean, that's kind of where we're at. That's almost like, I hate to put it all on Bryce, but that's kind of where Michigan's season relies. You know, it lies on him, and if he's the dude or not, if he's that guy or not. Like, having Andrew Marsh certainly helps. Like, a stud receiver like Andrew Marsh out wide can help Bryce Underwood for sure, but Bryce has to show a lot of improvement. He has to show a lot of strides from last season where he struggled, and who knows? Like, it's kind of up in the air. Like, I still believe in the talent he has, and they called him Trevor Lawrence for a reason coming out of high school, but like, $12 million, you handed the kid $12 million, so he's got to pay off. He's got to be good. He's got to hit his ceiling, essentially, for this all to work at Michigan. Or I don't know what happens if Underwood's not good this year. That's like worst case scenario, and then, you know, you're finding another quarterback for Michigan for the future. So, all right, moving on to number 15, Alabama Crimson Tide. And this is like, I kind of struggled to even put them this high, but it was like, this is simply a ranking out of pure respect. This is the single most question marks that an Alabama team has faced in over 20 years of college football. Since before Nick Saban took over there, this is the most question marks that an Alabama program has had coming into a season, entering a college football season. And it's crazy to say, but on paper, when you look at this roster, when you look at the lineups, it's not great. It's not pretty. I don't know where the wins are. Like, they need to prove more. They need to go out there and show it on the field, and they need to execute. Defensively, they should have one of the best secondaries in college football. Like, Alabama's always going to be good defensively. Like, it's kind of lazy to say like the trench play for SEC teams is always elite, but like, they just get the big dudes up front. That they're bigger than MAC players. They're bigger than Big 12 players even. Like, offensive line, D-line. Those guys are always just going to be bigger on the teams like Alabama and Georgia compared to Cincinnati or Purdue, you know? So that's just kind of how it is. The secondary specifically for Alabama, Bray Hubbard and Keon Sabb are two of the best defensive backs in college football. So they're going to lock it up in the secondary. I don't doubt that. But it's hard to judge the offense right now, given when they haven't made a quarterback decision. We don't know who's going to start at quarterback yet. It's either Austin Mack or Keelan Russell. hearing positive things out of both, but they're always going to hype up their guys. And until we see it in a game and they do it on the field, like, it's just hard to rank them. So I can't put them higher than 15, but I did it out of respect because I know they're going to be higher than this in the AP poll, and I know they're already higher in the coach poll. Or were they like 10th in the coach poll or 11th or something like that? So, yeah, that's all I got on Alabama. 14, USC Trojans. This is a make or break season for Lincoln Riley at USC. And I know we've kind of said that for the last 4 seasons for him. Like, it's kind of funny. Like, it feels like every year's make or break year for Lincoln Riley in college football. And then nothing happens. So they usually end up not making the playoffs, going 9-3, putting up crazy offensive numbers, and the defense lets them down every year. This might be the same season. This might be the exact same year, but it feels like this is the best team he's had at USC, and it feels like he must make the college football playoff or else his seat is going to get hot. I'm not saying he's going to get fired. I just think that the seat will get warm for him at USC, and the AD might be like, all right, what are we doing here? We still haven't made a college football playoff. We had Caleb Williams a couple years ago, and we couldn't even make a playoff. What are we doing? So I could see that happening if USC has like another 8-4, 9-3 season. Their schedule comes down to like Oregon, Ohio State, and Indiana. I mean, they have to win one of those games, and that is where they haven't been able to do that in recent years. It's always the defense. Can the defense be good enough? You have one of the top most experienced quarterbacks in the country coming back, Jaden Maiava, who is at the top of the ranks of QBR, PFF grade, PFSN, impact score, like all the advanced analytics love Maiava. All the draft scouts love Maiava. So like I just said, one of the most experienced quarterbacks who put up really good numbers a season ago. I'm a little lower on Maiava. I do think he's a very good like game manager and like can be a really good accurate point guard distributor of the football. But without the weapons of Mekhi Lemon and Jacoby Lane, he might have to do a little bit more and create on his own a little more. And I think he's kind of a statue back there. He's not really the mobile, get outside the pocket and do much. He's kind of just a gunslinger back there, and he's extremely accurate. Has a great arm. Like I said, like the box score numbers for Maiava always pop. The advanced analytics for Maiava also pop. So he needs one of these receivers to step up, specifically Tanu Kynes, who is a breakout candidate. We talked about him in our breakouts episode a few weeks ago with Dalton. Tanu Kynes really has to break out in that receiving core to make a difference because they lost their 2 studs to the NFL, and there's not really anyone kind of waiting around. And the run game hasn't been the best for USC in a couple years now, so a lot is going to be on Jaden Maiava's shoulders to carry this offense. And like he's done it the past 2 years, can he do it against the elite of the elite teams? I know you can beat we know you can beat like the UCLA and the Northwesterns of the world in the Big Ten. Can you beat Oregon? Can you beat Ohio State? Can you beat Indiana? That's what it's going to come down to for Lincoln Riley and USC. And if he can't win one of those 3 games this year, it may be the end of his tenure at USC. And that's all there is to it. So, all right, 13, BYU. The BYU Cougars. So I'm going to stamp it right now. Stamping this pick right now. I think this is the year BYU gets over the hump and makes the college football playoff. What they have built there is incredible. Their schedule is very favorable, and they brought back their 2 biggest stars in quarterback Bear Bachmeier and running back LJ Martin, who's an absolute dog. They honestly just need a wide receiver to step up because they lost their top targets, and they don't brought in some transfers, a couple younger guys who are, looking to get more play time. If any wide receiver steps up for the Cougars, that offense is going to be elite. And with Bachmeier in the run game, LJ Martin in the run game, and Bear specifically taking a step as a passer, I think that could be huge because we know the defense is going to be good. The only game I would pick them to lose right now on their schedule is Notre Dame. So BYU plays Notre Dame, but they get them at home. So, that's one where it's can you possibly upset the Fighting Irish? I think it'll be a night game, heavy heated crowd, hostile crowd environment for the Fighting Irish back here. That's going to be a fun one, man. And I know I think that's in mid-October, I want to say, but I would legitimately pick BYU to finish 11-1 outside of the Notre Dame game. So if they do that, and if they win all the games they should, they're absolutely going to be in the Big 12 championship game again with another shot at Texas Tech. The only team they could not beat last year, the only team who defeated BYU was Texas Tech twice. The regular season and the Big 12 championship, both were blowouts, but I would argue that BYU has closed the gap on Texas Tech, and Texas Tech has not really improved much since that point, especially with their quarterback dilemma. So I could easily see BYU being Big 12 champions when it's all said and done in December here. So number 12, Oklahoma Sooners. So Oklahoma's an interesting team because I've seen them higher than I feel like I'm putting them high, and then I saw them 9th in the coaches poll, and I was kind of like, whoa, maybe what am I missing here? But so the defense is always going to be elite under Venables. Brent Venables, defensive mastermind, always has been. He'll always have elite defense. That's his calling card. But the offense was rough to watch in 2025. So that's going to be much better. That's going to be improved. They brought back Isaiah Satenga, the top receiver, added Parker Livingston from Texas, star wide receiver from Texas, in addition to a ton of other great transfer wide receivers. So that's going to help quarterback John Mateer, who I'm hearing a lot of great things from coming out of Norman, like the development of this kid, the leadership of this kid, just the personality. He seems like a character. I always root for guys like that. And he's got a host, man. He's got a cannon of an arm. He kind of sidearms it, does a little shortstop throw. But it works. It works for him. So, and he's fun to watch. And not to mention, Oklahoma has the best kicker in the nation in Tate Sandel. Have you watched this kid hit kicks? He drills them, man. This kid has nails as a kicker. So many college kickers, end up blowing the game for their team and can't handle the pressure. This kid wants it. This kid wants the smoke, and he craves the pressure, and he loves kicking the big kicks. So he would be my preseason All-American for place kicker right now, Tate Sandel. So yeah, interesting season. I'm expecting an interesting season out of Oklahoma. I was kind of shocked when they beat Alabama last year and made the playoffs. I don't know if they're good enough to make the playoffs again, but given where they're ranked, they're going to be in the graphic, and they're probably going to be 10-2 again with a chance to make it. So we'll see how that ultimately pans out for them. But if Mateer pops and really kind of puts up the numbers he did at Washington State a couple years ago, the injury really derailed his season last year. Midway through the year, if you look back at his PFF grades, he was 80, 80, 80, 80, and then injury. And then Texas game was 20, and then 50, 50, 50, and then he just stunk it up the rest of the season. So I definitely look at Mateer's seasons with grain of salt when talking about the injury that happened to his thumb, his throwing arm. So it was a direct correlation to his numbers going down the tank versus the beginning of the season when his numbers were pretty good, and they were really pushing the Heisman narrative. ESPN was force-feeding us John Mateer Heisman highlights last year after week 2 when he beat Michigan. So he plays Michigan again in week 2, but this time it's in Ann Arbor. It's up in Ann Arbor, so that's going to be a fun one. Circle that game. Whoever wins that is going to obviously get higher in the rankings, and if Oklahoma wins, that could pole vault them up even more into the top 10 and probably will jumpstart Mateer's Heisman campaign if he lights it up that night. But if he loses and if Bryce lights it up, it's a whole different story. So there we go. All right, number 11, Texas Tech. Texas Tech Red Raiders. So I think I did it way too early back in February, right after the college football season ended. I know it's crazy. I apologize for not getting another ranking out from that time between now and then, but we're doing it now. Texas Tech was, I believe, my 5th ranked team then, but that was when it was Brendan Sorsby, and that was before all the gambling stuff that we later found out about. So this ranking's tough without really knowing the quarterback position. I bumped them down just to get them outside the top 10, but I still think Texas Tech's going to make the playoffs. So I put them top 12 here because the rest of the roster is so stacked that their schedule is not that hard. So it's tricky to put them any lower. Like, I don't need to put them any lower because they have arguably the best defense in college football with hands down the best linebacking unit in college football, bringing in Austin Romaine from Kansas State. He's going to do his best Jacob Rodriguez impression, and he'll probably do a pretty damn good job at it if you watch his highlights at Kansas State last year. Also, the best running back room in college football. That's not even debatable. With Cameron Dickey and Jacoby Williams, you got one for speed, one for power, who can each bring something different to the offense. You got the best tight end in college football, in my opinion, Terrence Carter, who's going to be possibly his first or second round pick in next year's draft. The only question is really the quarterback, and it's projected to be Will Hammond right now, who's coming off a torn ACL that he tore late in the season last year. Hammond doesn't even need to be like anything special. He just needs to be average, like a game manager, essentially. And I also don't think he's bad. Like, I thought he was pretty good. If you watch the Utah game and the Arizona State game, he lost the Arizona State game, but he still put the team on his back and like was leading drives and was running in for touchdowns. And the fourth quarter he played against Arizona State, that kid has got it, man. That kid is tough as nails. You can see the Red Raiders love him. They rally around him, and he really led a comeback. I think Hammond's going to be good. So, like, I wasn't as worried when it was like, oh, Sorsby's gone. But it's really the injury is the concern here. And, like, right now, they don't think he's going to be back for week 1 or 2, which is against some FCS schools, so they don't got to worry about that. But they do play Houston week 3, which is Connor Wegman, who we had ranked 18th. So that's going to be a top 25 matchup. The Red Raiders need Will Hammond ready back for that game. And even if he's ready, how do we know he's like 100% and like sharp and like, you know, in play shape, if you will, in game shape, if you will. So it'll be interesting. I got my eyes on Texas Tech because like I said, their roster might be too good to where it doesn't matter and they just dominate the Big 12. They just roll through everybody in the Big 12. But I could see them both finishing 11-1 and meeting BYU in the championship, and that game could be a coin flip this time. So, all right, top 10, getting in the top 10 now. All right, number 10, Texas A&M. Texas A&M Aggies. I think I'm higher on the Aggies than anybody coming into this season. And I think people are kind of sleeping on them after a 12-2 season where they made the playoff. I'm very high on Mike Elko and his defense. Again, I firmly believe he's one of the best program builders in the nation as a head coach, and he's proven it now at 2 schools with Duke and Texas A&M. The offense has a few question marks losing KC Concepcion, but Mario Craver is still back, and he's still one of the best wide receivers in college football, one of the most craziest dynamic athletes you'll see in the sport. Yes, Marcel Reed struggled down the stretch of last season in big games, but I kind of see Reed as a little bit of a chip guy. He kind of strikes me as a chip on his shoulder guy who's going to work his ass off to get better and get his team back to that moment to where he can right the wrong he did last year. He threw the interception with the game on the line against Miami and let his team down. I think this year he's going to work his ass off to like rewrite that and like prove the haters wrong, prove the doubters wrong, get his team back into the playoffs. Not predicting beyond that yet, but I think Reed is going to actually have a really good season. I'm not saying he's an NFL guy, but I do think this kid has what it takes to like win in the SEC. He proved it over last year, going 11-1 in the regular season, putting up pretty darn good numbers with his arms and legs. I think the confidence is even higher this year, and now I think he's got that chip on his shoulder after losing to Miami in the first round of the playoffs, and a lot of noise has been on the kid. Like, a lot of media has kind of, like, beat the kid into the ground over the offseason. So, like, again, I'm not saying, like, he's, like, going to be, like, win the Heisman or have a special, like, NFL campaign, but I do think Marcel Reed is a QB you can win with in college football, and he's going to have a really good season for the Aggies. And Mike L speaks very highly of him, and everything you hear out of their like summer practice is like Reed is poised for a big year, it sounds like. All right, another SEC team now. This one is kind of tough to rank. Ole Miss. So the Ole Miss Rebels, I think I had them 15th in my way too early back in March, and that was without Trinidad Chambliss, who got the waiver from the NCAA, who's officially back. He's been back. The question comes down to, do we see any offensive regression without Lane Kiffin on this team? Do we see any regression out of Trinidad Chambliss, who really played out of his mind? And I don't know if you could replicate that level of play, that level of elite status, and highlight acrobat throws that he was making. The 2 games he played against Georgia, you can't recreate those. Those were video game numbers. Those were highlights that you only make in those moments because of the adrenaline, because of the crowd, because of what's riding on the game, what's riding on the line in that moment. So I'm not predicting he's going to stink or have a bad season by any means. That's not what I'm saying. I just don't know if Trinidad Chambliss can possibly play as well as he did last season. He was so freaking good. 3,600 passing yards, 66 completion percentage, 500 rushing yards, 30 touchdown passes, barely any interceptions. So that's my point, is the numbers were so freaking good last season. He can only go down. He can only get worse statistically. Again, I'm not saying he's going to play worse and be bad all of a sudden. I just think box score wise, his numbers can only regress because they were so freaking good and they were so high last year. So, and that's kind of how I feel about Q and Lacey too, the running back, the star running back that I just brought back, who had almost 2,000 rushing yards, 20 touchdown rushes. I feel like they can only go down and go backwards in terms of offensive numbers, points scored and whatnot. But the defense here is what could be the difference maker. And especially under head coach Pete Golding, we know Pete Golding is a defensive-minded coach, and we know he's going to really prioritize that side of the line. And the defense should be just as good. They didn't really lose a ton. They lost a couple transfers to LSU, but I am just kind of waiting to see if the offense stays the same, because I'm worried if that's not what it was with Lane Kiffin calling plays. I'm worried we see some regression out of Chambliss, because I don't know if he can literally keep up the best level of play in college football. It's insane. So, and maybe he'll prove me wrong. Maybe he gets even better. Maybe he just comes out and throws for 4,000 and runs for 1,000 and maybe I look like an idiot, but we'll see. I challenge the kid to do it, and I would love to watch, but I would have my doubts, is all I'll say. All right, number 8, the team who beat Ole Miss in the semifinals last year, which, as I'm doing this, I feel like I should have this team a little higher, but we're already here now, so let's just say these next 8 teams are all really good. Okay, the next 8 teams are splitting hairs here. My playoff picks are going to be different because you obviously have to account for seasons and team records at the end of that, win-loss and whatnot. Miami Hurricanes check in at number 8 for me, but you could probably have them in the top 5, and I wouldn't argue you. This team might be better than last year, and they made the championship, and they were one drive away from winning the championship against Indiana. So, Cristobal has built a juggernaut, man. Both sides of the ball, which offensive line, D-line won't be as strong, but that's about it. That's really about it. And they've got the top true freshman in all of college football, and Jackson Cartwell coming in to play tackle for them. So if he hits, the line might not skip a beat at all. Obviously the D-line's not going to be as good without Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor. When you lose 2 studs in the NFL, it's hard to recreate that success. So, but they still have Ahmad Moten, who's going to be good there. And they still got Malachi Toney and Mark Fletcher on offense. So the weapons are top tier. Cooper Barkey from Duke, who is another transfer coming in from Duke as well, along with prize possession quarterback Darian Mensah, who's got all the hype this offseason. Really got a ton of hype, led the Power 4 in passing yards. 3,900 passing yards, an elite touchdown interception ratio, good arm, accurate arm, doesn't really put the ball in harm's way. Good athlete, not really a runner, but like can still move and like get outside the pocket and throw on the run. Mensa's going to put up Heisman numbers. He was in the top, I believe he's in the top 4 for Heisman odds as we speak right now. So like, I've seen people say he's like the best combination of Cam Ward and Carson Beck, which honestly could be true. So like, maybe he leads this team further than they both did. It's like, got him to Cam Ward, like led him to 10-2. Beck gets him the championship, and now Mensa finishes the job and maybe wins it all. Who knows? So, but this kid is that good, and with the weapons he has in Malachi Toney and Mark Fletcher and Cooper, who he also brought over from Duke, they're going to put up points for days. It's really going to come down to if the defense can be as good as it was last season. Won't be as good as 25, but if they can step up on the D-line, that could be huge. There's no doubt in my mind, Miami is the clear favorite in the ACC. They're probably the biggest favorite of all the Power 4 conferences. Like if I had to pick one who I really think is going to win their conference, it's definitely Miami. So top to bottom, they're just by far the best roster in that conference. All right, number 7. So this might be a little lower than you'll see this team for me, but I've got the Texas Longhorns at number 7 here. I'm just being cautious on that. It feels like we're doing this all over again with Texas, but I'm putting them a little lower when I think I had them like 3rd last year, 2nd, or wherever. I'm just doing them at 7, and I'm pausing it there because I'm like, all right, Arch, beat Ohio State week 2, and then we'll talk. Come back to me after week 2, Texas, and then we'll talk. If you win that game, I will pole vault you up in these rankings. I will have no quarrels about it. I will have no arguments if you beat Ohio State, but I don't think you're going to beat Ohio State for the record. So, and I don't think Arch is going to be the superstar that everybody has already penciled him in as. So I still think he has a lot to prove. I know he was better in the second half of the season. I don't think he was by any means like elite in the second half of the season. I still think he has everything to prove, and he needs to show real improvements over a full season on the field, like on the actual football field in the actual games. I'm not just going to give Arch the Heisman because of his last name, which everybody wants to. So like, he's not a bad Heisman bet because of that. Like if his stats are anywhere decent and their team is in the mix, he's probably going to win the Heisman Trophy. But to me, he still has a lot to prove. And wide receiver Cam Coleman's going to help him do that. Like, kid's a stud. Kid's an absolute beast. I know everybody just saw that highlight, the one-handed catch he made, like jumping last week. That was all over TikTok. So that kid is going to be special. Can jump out the gym, can catch everything, elite ball skills, catch radius. And not to mention their defense is insane too. Colin Simon's arguably the best edge rusher in college football. Probably him and Dylan Stewart would be my top 2 right there. That's going to be a first-round pick. Colin Simon's coming off the edge. And they also have one of the best offensive lines in college football as well with Trevor Gooseby, who's one of the top tackles in college football, going to be a top draft pick next year. So everything is right in front of Texas here. Everything for Sark is in front of them. They can absolutely win the national championship. They absolutely have enough talent to do it. They can win the SEC, but it's on Arch. Like, it's on Arch's shoulders, and he has to be the catalyst. He has to be the leader. He has to be the one to lead the charge and carry the team and win it for him. We've been hearing it for years and kind of struggled coming out of the gate last year against Ohio State. So, like I'm saying, Arch, go beat Ohio State week 2, and then we'll talk. Texas, if you win that game, I will have no problem putting you up at number 1 after this, but I got to see it first. So that's where I'm at with Texas. We're just going to pause there for now with them at number 7. And this ranking, who I have at 6, could spark a little debate here at 6 and 7. LSU Tigers are the most volatile team in college football, in my opinion. They could absolutely win the Natty, or they could go 8-4, and that wouldn't shock me either. That's kind of what it is for Lane Kiffin, and it's kind of just a matter of if Lane can bring it all together and make it work, because there's just so many moving parts. There's so many new faces. On paper, they are one of the most talented teams in college football. in the entire country, loaded with NFL talent at every position. Across the board, LSU is loaded with talent. Look on every draft board. Go across position by position. I guarantee you will see an LSU Tiger at the top for a lot of positions. And it like I said, it comes down to Lane Kiffin, and maybe the biggest X factor in all of college football, that is quarterback Sam Leavitt, transfer from Arizona State, who was my Heisman pick in 2024 or 2025 last year. Rough. That was a rough Heisman pick. He struggled with injuries, struggled against Mississippi State week 2, and then ended up missing the rest of the season after he got hurt against Houston. So the talent Leavitt has, the tools he has, I have comped him to Caleb Williams and Patrick Mahomes. I'm not joking when I say those comps. I think watch the tape, man. Watch the abilities he has. The psycho competitor that Leavitt is, that is why I feel confident that it's going to work out for LSU, because psycho competitiveness is almost like number one aspect in my book of what I'm looking for in athletes. The simple drive to want to win the game and how hard it is to beat those guys. Leavitt is 6-1 in his career against ranked teams. 6-1. He is so hard to beat. The only game he lost was the Texas game. And the Texas, which he threw the pick at the end, so yeah, it was his fault. But he had Texas beat. Do you not remember the Arizona State-Texas Cotton Bowl game a couple of years ago? He took him to double overtime. Leavitt had him beat, and he scored the touchdown. Texas at 4th and goal, and then Quinn Ewers throws a pearl to the end zone, and then they tie it up, and then they win in the double overtime. But my point is that Leavitt had Texas beat a couple years ago. If he won that game, he probably would have lost the next one. But either way, his win-loss record against top 25 teams would be even better. So that's kind of the point I'm making. Yeah, that's LSU, an extremely volatile team. They've got transfers such as left tackle Jordan Seaton, who's projected as a first-round pick. Jace Brown, a wide receiver from Kansas State, who is projected as a draft pick. Ty Benfield, safety out of Boise State. All these guys are projected to be studs. So it's just a matter of if they all comes together and fits and executes on the football field. That's the most important. All right, number 5, my top SEC team, who I will likely, we won't give it away, but could be my pick to win SEC championship. Georgia Bulldogs. Georgia comes in at 5. Kirby Smart just gives them such a high floor, man. He is just such a hard coach to beat in literally just one game. Like in a game of football, watch the in-game adjustments that Kirby makes. Watch the adjustments he makes just in the middle of a game defensively. It's crazy, like how hard it is to fully finish Georgia and finish them off in a 60-minute football game. Like, not many can do it. I had a stat a couple years ago that I used for years. It was the only teams that had beaten Georgia in 5 seasons was Alabama and Kyle Trask's Florida Gators. From 2019 to 2023 or whatever, that was the only team that beat Georgia once. So point I'm making is Kirby has got this franchise at the highest floor in the nation. If they go less than 11-1, it's a bad season for Georgia by their standards. It's crazy. And the defense should be much better than it was in 2025. That was not a Georgia defense by their standards. This defense should be back to their level, normal status of play. And the run game, again, you never got to worry about the run game for Georgia. They've got stud true freshman coming back, Nate Frazier. A dominant O-line. Georgia's always had a dominant offensive line. Drew Bobo, the center, is back for his final year of college football. One of the best linemen in the country. So you never have to worry about the trenches for a team like Georgia and on offense or defense. You turn on an Eagles game and you'll watch Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter dominate the game, and it's that makes sense coming out of Georgia. Those are those guys, yeah. Gunnar Stockton, the quarterback for Georgia, is as solid as it gets for a Georgia QB. He's kind of more of a game manager, less toolsy, but he can run a little bit. He's accurate underneath. He's not really got a rifle of an arm, but takes what the defense gives him. Smart, solid player. accurate, tough as nails. That's kind of like the biggest attribute about him is he's a gamer. You know me, guys. I love gamers. He goes out there and he'll lay it all on the line. The Tennessee game was the game where I was like, okay, yeah, this kid has it. That 4th and 8 throw he made at the end to win it. Stockton makes good decisions and doesn't turn the ball over, put the ball in harm's way. He needs some help, though. He needs some wide receivers to step up because he lost Zachariah Branch to the NFL, lost Dominic Lovett to the NFL, who I watched last night on the Lions at the Lions-Bengals preseason game. I saw Lovett and was like, oh, yeah, Georgia Bulldogs. But if any wide receiver can step up for Georgia, this offense could be really good then. And they could easily win the SEC. Because they've got all the other pieces elsewhere. It's really just the receiving position, which it's kind of crazy to think that Georgia hasn't added like a stud receiver in the transfer portal for like quite some time now. So maybe Kirby just wants to do it his way on the ground. So, all right, number 4, getting nitty gritty here, almost done. Oh, the team of the hour, Notre Dame Fighting Irish, number 4. Yeah, Mike Renner's Notre Dame Fighting Irish check in at number 4 for me. This is the best team Marcus Freeman has had in South Bend. I know they made the championship a couple years ago, but we all kind of knew that team didn't really have a chance against Ohio State. With all due respect, this team does. This team actually has a chance to win the national championship and can do it. They have enough talent. They maybe the most talented team in college football. You could make a case. CJ Carr is the current leader in Heisman odds at quarterback. Was an absolute stud for them last season. 24 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. Only needed to throw for like 27 yards, but was ridiculously efficient. I think he had a couple games where he only threw like 5 or 6 pass attempts at the end because they were just winning by so much. They didn't even need him to do much. So expect a big season out of CJ Carr. They have the best cornerback in the country in Leonard Moore. This guy is getting Sauce Gardner comps right now for like his like pro level status of like what he could be at the next level. Leonard Moore is completely locked down, completely shuts down a whole side of the field. They don't even throw to his side of the field, it feels like. Defense is going to be nasty. Offense is going to be nasty. I know they lost both their running backs, Love and Price, to the NFL, but they've got dudes waiting behind them. They've got studs coming up from behind to fill the run game, and they're extremely confident in that. They brought in 2 wide receivers from Ohio State, 2 transfers from Ohio State, in addition to bringing back Jordan Faison and Jaden Greathouse, their 2 leading receivers from a season ago. I'm very excited to watch the Irish. They're calling it the revenge tour. Marcus Freeman is all in on winning the Natty this year, and they very well could be one of the few teams that can do it. Can they beat Miami at home this time, though? That is going to be a question. That's going to be what their season ultimately comes down to. 11-1 they're in. They're definitely in at 11-1. The 3 games I would circle on Notre Dame's schedule. So obviously they're independent. We all know that. Last year they went 10-2 and just missed out in a little controversial ranking. This year they don't play A&M, but they do play Miami. The Hurricanes, but they get them at home. Up in South Bend, they lost that game to start the season last year to Carson Beck. And then they start 0-2 and kind of was just digging their way out from there. Those games are later in the season. They open up against Wisconsin, and then I think they play like Rice or someone. So like Notre Dame's going to start like no doubt 5-0, 6-0. BYU travel to them. That's a tough road game. SMU late in the season, and then Miami. So those are the only 3 games that I would have any sort of like concern about if I were an Irish fan. I would pick them to go 11-1 and be one of the top 4 seeds and feel really good about my national championship odds if I'm rooting for Notre Dame. So that's all we'll say on that. But yeah, it's going to come down to like, honestly, they can probably lose 1 game, but you probably can't lose 2 if you're not in a conference and don't like, play. If you're independent, that's just kind of how it is. So, all right, last 3 here. Last 3. Number 3 is Oregon. The Oregon Ducks are my 3rd team here, and I'll just give it away. The last 3 are Big Ten teams. I'm sure you figured it out by now. The final 3 teams are Big Ten teams. It's kind of wild that I have Oregon as the 3rd of the 3. Like, it's because a lot of people have them first, and some even second. So, like, top to bottom across the board, like this is the best roster with the fewest weaknesses and the most proven pieces. So That's how I will describe it. Like, if you're just looking on a football field at the 22 names and like the 11 guys on defense, the 11 guys on offense, they are probably the most proven 22 players on a football field. Oregon's defensive line brought back like everybody. Amari Washington, Tatum Tului, I can't say that name. Mateo Uyunglele. So they brought back all those guys. Dan Lanning was able to get all these guys to come back. Barry Alexander as well as one of them. So the defensive line is going to be top tier, and the offense brought back everyone as well, including Dante Moore, who would have been the Jets pick at number 2. Like, that has been confirmed. People have literally, like, the Jets came out and said, like, they would have took Dante Moore, and maybe that's why Moore wanted to go back to college, because he didn't want to play for the New York Jets. You never know. So I think Moore's really good. I am questioning what his ultimate ceiling is as a QB and like, long-term, I guess, in the NFL. I don't know if we're going to get a better season out of Dante Moore than we just got. The guy was nails. The guy was elite at everything. 72 completion percentage, almost 4,000 passing yards, elite, touchdown interception ratio. The accuracy he puts on his balls, the back shoulder throws, like the processing speed this guy has, in the pocket mobility he has. I think this guy reminds me of CJ Stroud. I was shocked he didn't come out last year's draft. I'm not sure what more he has to prove other than like himself, Dante Moore himself, because the only game he lost last year was Indiana, or twice to Indiana, but the only games he lost were to the best team in the nation. So that's another Dan Lanning stat as well. I know Dan Lanning still has to win the big game and has kind of folded in the big games and gotten blown out in a couple. If you look back at the teams that Dan Lanning's lost to in his tenure, all of them have gone on to play in the national championship. Washington, Ohio State, and then Indiana last year. So, like, I do want to cut some slack to Dan Lanning a little bit because I do think the big game thing gets blown out of proportion. But that's kind of the question mark and the only thing he has to prove at Oregon. He has done everything he can. He has brought that program. He has established them as like top 5 in the country year in, year out. They have already been the 1 seed. They've made 2 college football playoffs under him. So, like, he's here to stay, but he's got to win the big one. He's got to win the national championship. Oregon has never won a national championship in the program history, so that's what they're going for. The receiving corps should be much improved again. DeCorian Moore is one of my breakout candidates, along with Jamari Johnson, who's better than Kenyon Sadiq. If you watched the Ducks offense last year, you know who I'm talking about. Jamari Johnson, tight end, is the far better tight end than Kenyon Sadiq, in my opinion. And I think he's going to have an even better season than Kenyon did last year. So keep an eye on those two as pass catchers because they could really bring a lot to this offense of the Ducks. So, all right, number 2, I had to put this team above Oregon simply because they destroyed them in the playoff last year. That's Indiana, and I don't know how much that gap really just gets closed based on that. So Indiana Hoosiers are checking in at number 2 for me, and it's a respect nod to Kurt Cignetti and what he's accomplished. I don't think he's going anywhere. I was out on Indiana last year. I didn't buy it. I didn't believe it. I didn't even have them in my playoffs, and then they won the whole damn thing going 16-0. So this is me giving respect to Cignetti here and believing in everything that he's done and believing it's going to work again. They just had arguably the best transfer portal class. They brought in a quarterback that I was higher on than Fernando Mendoza a season ago, for the record. Josh Hoover, TCU quarterback. I don't think we expect him to have a Heisman season like Mendoza had and be the number 1 pick. But if you're just judging off of like what you thought of each player a season ago, I would have probably ranked Hoover above Mendoza. So you never know. And he's got weapons for days to throw to, like Charlie Becker, who's one of the best wide receivers in college football, going to be a first-round pick next year, the next Alec Pierce in the NFL. And on top of that, he added Nick Marsh from Michigan State, star wide receiver transfer from Michigan State, who went for over 1,000 in East Lansing. So, like, those are 2 stud weapons for Josh Hoover to throw to right now. He's got to cut down on his interceptions. He's got to cut down on the picks. He knows that. I do think in Cignetti's offense, he will be a little less gunslinger-esque and like a little more shy to like just rip it, if you will. But And almost the biggest addition for them happened a week ago on the defensive line for Indiana. Stephen Daly and Kellen Wyatt are huge returnees for them. They just got granted the 5th year of eligibility like a week ago. Those are huge additions. Each had over 4.5 sacks for Indiana last season. Stephen Daly was arguably the best defensive end for this team a season ago on a championship caliber defense. So that right there, I think the floor is extremely high for Indiana. And if you look at their schedule right now, I don't see them losing more than one game, if any. They get Ohio State at home, they avoid Oregon, and their out of conference is kind of a joke. So like, you could realistically make a case they go 12-0 again, and they're back in the Indianapolis, the Big Ten title game. So I could definitely see it. I would probably say 11-1, just stamp it there. But that Ohio State game in Bloomington is going to be like, man, that's going to be like, is that the next big, great rivalry in the Big Ten? Like, is that going to surpass OSU Michigan as the 2 best teams? We'll see. Speaking of Ohio State, they are my number 1 team in my power rankings. I'm sure you're not surprised. Give it away that Ohio State, I think, is the most talented team in the country. I think top to bottom, they have the most NFL talent, and they have the most players who are going to be playing on Sundays in a couple of years from now and lighting it up on Sundays, especially the 2 at the top. One, best player in college football, that is wide receiver Jeremiah Smith. What more can we say about this guy? I mean, he's Julio Jones 2.0. I've never seen a college receiver like him come in and dominate from day one and just be the best player right away. And like, from the very first game he played at Ohio State, he was getting the most targets, more targets than any other receiver, and that team had Emeka Egbuka. So that shows the respect defenses give to Jeremiah Smith, the respect coaches give to Jeremiah Smith, and just the level of talent he is, the type of player he is. He can do anything on a field. He has no weaknesses as a wide receiver. And yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if him or Julian Sayin won the Heisman. I think Julian Sayin has the better chance to, the better odds to, given, it's a quarterback league. It's a quarterback world. And quick rant on Sayin, everybody has fallen off on him so much, and it blows my mind. They're acting like he wasn't just the most accurate quarterback in like college football history that we've like ever seen. The guy is lights out, dialed in. The accuracy he possesses, the processing speed he possesses, the high-level processor that he is, he does not make mistakes. I know he kind of looked somewhat human in the last 2 games of the season that they lost. I get it. I understand that people are a little like, oh, he didn't play well against Indiana or Miami. And it's like, I don't think he played poorly. He definitely didn't play bad against those teams. But you could see his offensive line was getting worked all game, and he had no time back there. Miami's D-line completely ate Ohio State alive that night. And if you go back and watch the tape, like, he was running for his life. He had no time to throw, and he was kind of just getting rid of the football because he didn't want to get hit. And I get it. You don't always want to see that out of your quarterback. So Sayin does have a little bit to prove in maybe the big game category and like putting on some pounds, putting on some weight, which I've heard he's done. So I do think he will look bigger and stronger in the pocket. But the arm talent he has, I'm not saying he's going to throw it as far as Josh Allen or like Patrick Mahomes, but like he is Joe Burrow levels of accuracy and pinpoint accuracy on his ball. And so like, if I had to pick a Heisman right now, it would be Sayin, because I think his numbers are going to be insane. I think he'll put up 4,000, 40 touchdowns. Probably 20 of them will go to Smith, and those 2 will just never look back and be lighting it up for 40, 50 points a week is what I'm anticipating. So the question for Ohio State, if they can win the whole thing, is going to come down to the D-line. So every year they lose so many players to the NFL. That's just common. They just lose so much talent every year. That's just kind of how it is. But they always reload. They always bring in better transfers. Terry Moore, star safety out of Duke, was one of the transfers there, along with the Florida State kid in the secondary. So the secondary is going to be nails, as usual. They bring back Jermaine Matthews, who was one of my cornerbacks of the week last year for PFF when I was writing Team of the Week. Jermaine Matthews made corner of the week like 3 times throughout the season. So that guy's a stud. He shut down Texas week 1. He's going to be even better. The D-line is the question mark because obviously they lost a lot to the NFL, and that's kind of what they always lose in like Caden McDonald and Caden Curry. So guys like that. But if they get guys to reload, if they get guys who are even more talented or even better, like the next 5-star usually just steps right up. So I'm not worried about Ohio State reloading at any position. They do it every year. They do it all the time, and the player never seems to be worse. So I have a good feeling that the reinforcements are coming and will be just as good. That's why I've got Ohio State number 1 right now. I think they have the best offense in the country with the 2 best players at the sport. That's why I would put them number 1 in my power rankings right now for college football. So, all right, that's all I got for you guys today. Appreciate you listening. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe to The Point After with Mitch Kaiser. Let me know what you think of my rankings below. Comment which teams are too high. Comment which teams are too low. If you completely hate these rankings and think they're terrible, comment below. Let me know. Love to hear it. We love to talk ball. So, there you go. Appreciate you guys watching, and have a great rest of your Friday. I will be back next week to talk college football quarterbacks. Have a great rest of your day.